Are are you ready, Bruce?
Yes.
All right. Hello,
I'm
hello,
ready.
and what?
I said, yeah, I am ready.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Temple of the False Spot. We're actually not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy,
Bruce. Sorry.
and
Getting excited.
welcome to episode 100, season 10, episode 10. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. Normally, our season enders, we do a little deck building challenge, but we got some surprises in store for you. We wanted to sit down, have a nice chat, and we brought our friend Kyle along. Most of you probably know him, and if you don't, you will soon know him a bit. And he brought one of his favorite decks. So, Kyle, welcome.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
I'm great.
Thank you guys for having me. I don't exactly feel like I am 100 episode material. Like, I feel like you should have like a big name on, and I am a guy, but I appreciate it.
Well, we went for big hat.
I
Yeah.
do have one of those.
There we go.
Kyle, I've known you for a few years now, and Bruce has known you for much longer. And I thought, well, we thought this was a discussion. We planned this ahead. Bruce and I thought that you would be a great guest because, well, I think the three of us have a lot in common in terms of what's the word? I keep forgetting this word.
The word is fun. Kyle
That's the
builds
word.
fun decks. The decks are fun. They're fun to play with. They're fun to play against. And having Kyle at the helm of his own decks is the best. I strongly recommend, if you ever get the chance to play a game of Commander, and Kyle is there, drag him in, get a game in with Kyle, because you will not regret it. The decks are just fun. And I know people say fun is subjective. What's fun for one person is not necessarily fun for the other. That's just not true. In this case, it's always fun, guaranteed, every single time. I don't know how it happens. I don't understand why. Maybe Kyle has a better understanding of it, but it's always fun. Right, Kyle?
It really is always fun. I wish I knew why. Because you always see those things of like random pub stompers and like people have various bad games at events, and I just don't. And I don't know how I often get so fortunate where I have like maybe one bad game a quarter or like a half year at most, and otherwise everything just kind of works out.
It's always fun. I've been thinking about this a lot because I mean, if I may be so bold, because I also have had the same
Experience.
ponderance,
Okay.
not necessarily experience, definitely not the same experience, and in terms of what makes a game with Kyle so cool, and for me, it's come around to the idea that it's not necessarily about the cards that are being played. It's the attitude that you bring to a table. It's the understanding that a game has ebb and flow and kind of not only accepting consequence to big actions but embracing it.
One of my normal rules is go ahead and hit me. I deserve it. And even if it doesn't look like I deserve it, I will sooner or later.
Yeah. And like I feel like I hear so many people talking about like, oh, like, you know, a game's got to end, or like, you know, everybody loses at some point. Like, yeah, that's true, but like I feel like a lot of people don't embrace it as well as some people. And I feel like playing across from somebody who just doesn't doesn't quite get it. It just like you can see it like eating at them or like, and it's contagious. But I feel like the opposite is contagious as well, especially in this context in terms of just like I've played games against you where you did this big thing and we're all like, oh no, but you just like continue laughing because you know that it's just going to be hit right back because you know that's how the game goes. And
last year at BrewCon, I had a Quadra Cascade off a 12 drop, and I lost because I had to attack, get my like crazy Quadra Cascade. I could barely see. I was laughing so hard, and I think I died before it got back to me.
Sounds about right. I think it was you, me. I don't remember who else was in that game.
Carlos and Stibbs.
Carlos and Stibbs, of course. It was a wild game. And yeah, it's just, you know, like you got to do the thing and it's sweet.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. So we figured we'd bring that energy to the show for an episode. Really kick off.
Let's talk about my level of fun.
Yeah.
I hope you like 6/6s.
You brought a deck with you today. Do you want to give any introduction to it, or should we jump right in?
Oh, I'm going to give an introduction. So,
heck yeah.
I am in my mid-30s. I have been playing Magic since I was in the 3rd grade. That's a while if you like to do math. And one of the eras I played a lot in was Saga Magic. And like I went from having like the green cards I owned deck, where my deck was like this big unsleeved, and I just kind of like added and subtracted lands based on the last game. And everyone thought my like craw worms and my scaled worms were the scariest thing in the world, and I loved it. And then I started going to Monday Night Arena. I couldn't go to FNM because we had other family plans on Friday nights generally. And I got smoked by like someone playing Stroke of Genius combo and just like got me. But there was a card in Saga that I fell in love with and I still love today. And that was Sneak Attack. And I got 4 of them, and I was sneaking in Sarah avatars and endless worms, trying to just like crush people out of the game. And most of the times it didn't work, but when it did, it was awesome. And this is my love letter to Sneak Attack. I still have one of the Sneak Attacks. I've only got one of the 4 Sneak Attacks left from when I was a kid. And I built Ilharg the Raze Boar. And the idea is very simply a love letter to one of my favorite cards in Magic, Sneak Attack, because nothing beats surprise, except rock.
And I love too the acceptance. I mean, I'm not gonna harp on this is the last time I harp on this. I love the acceptance of like it doesn't win every time because
no.
I mean, Bruce brings this up all the time of you should be winning 25% of your games, and like, man, Sneak Attack, what a sick card.
It is hilarious. So if you don't know Sneak Attack, it's 3 and a red for an enchantment, and for 1 red mana, you can put any creature from your hand into play, gains haste for 1 turn. You sack it at end of turn. Now you could do silly things with like Eldrazi and crazy big like turn sideways and the game ends. I don't. You could do Sundial the Infinite stuff and like try to make it so you cheat your cards and you get to keep them in play. I don't do that either. I just accepted like, look, I'm going to turn sideways and hope for the best.
Yeah. And I mean, Ilharg is built to do that. I mean, Ilharg, for those who don't know, is a 6/6 for 3 red. Legendary creature Boar God, trample. Whenever Ilharg the Raze Boar attacks, you may put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. When it dies,
when Ilharg dies, you put him on the 3rd card deep.
Ah, yes, that classic War of the Spark God stuff.
Yeah, the War of the Spark God stuff. Which, like, I already have a 6/6 trample for 5, which, again, as someone who played a lot of Crawworm and Scaled Worm, feels well out of balance, but I will take it.
Especially with that sweet, sweet trample.
With that sweet, sweet trample.
Yeah. So Kyle, how often do you put Ilharg third from the top? Is that something you
Uh,
do all the time, or do you or do you just sort of let it die so you can recast it right away? Or
Bruce, I'm gonna give you the lawyer answer. It really just depends on the game state. So if I've got a ton of mana rocks, if I've got a mana geyser in hand, and I know I can like
sure.
bring him right back out. If I think the game's gonna be a little bit longer, I don't mind just putting him third from the top and just working my way to him. I have a lot of
Sure.
draw effects in the deck, um, but a lot of them are also impulse draw. So I kind of have to sit and think for a second of like, okay, and gonna do some quick math in my head of like, all right, if I'm gonna draw 2 cards, then impulse draw the third. Okay, I probably don't want to impulse draw Ilharg in or in 2 turns.
All right. So we've mentioned sneak attack, mentioned Ilharg. Now I know that you've got a handful of other ways to cheat things out onto the battlefield. You want to go through that category with us?
Yeah, so um up until about a week ago, I had a couple other cards that were meant to kind of be my cheat step kind of cards other than Ilharg. And
Hmm.
that was sneak attack. I had Feldon of the Third Path, which you could use as an alternative commander if you don't have an Ilharg, but you have a Feldon, because I think Feldon's like $1.
Mm.
Um, and Feldon lets you more or less sneak attack something out of your graveyard, but it's an artifact, so you can all just do artifact shenanigans if you're gonna bring in welders and stuff. Again, I don't. Um, but if let's say you sneak attack something into play 1 turn and then it dies, then you Feldon it into play it back, and again you just keep the cycle moving. I also brought up that I don't do Sundial the Infinite, but I do Conjurer's Closet because for 5 mana I get it twice. So you go to the end of the turn, you put the Ilharg trigger on the stack, you put the Conjurer's Closet trigger on top of that, you flicker it out, flicker it back in, get that sweet ETB a second time, and now it's a new object and you don't have to get rid of it from sneak attack
Right.
or bring it back to your hand from Ilharg. I did
Okay.
recently add Delina Wild Mage because I love rolling d20s. I know some people that love some dice rolling decks, and they always make it look so much fun. So I want to roll a d20.
I've heard about those people. Those decks do look like a lot of fun.
They
I
look
don't
like
think I've
serious
met
fun.
one in my
Yeah.
life.
Look like some serious fun. I would agree with that.
I also added Perforos Bronze Blooded because he's got more or less a sneak attack ability. It's again less efficient, but he also gives like a static haste to the board, so it's kind of worth it.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to trying it out. It's new.
Yeah, and if you get there, he's also a 7/6 indestructible.
Oh yeah,
So-
I mean, sure.
If you get there. Yeah. I love Delina. I keep trying to make it work, but I think her in the 99 is especially in this deck is pretty sweet.
If you want to make her work as in the lead, let's talk later because
Oh, for sure.
I've got some sweet ideas because I think the difference between like Ilharg, Delina, and Feldon isn't that great that you couldn't just kind of do some tweaks and switch from one to the other.
Kyle, I had a question. I know your draw package. You've got 15 cards listed in the draw package, and
Yeah.
let's be honest, I'm sure there are other cards in the deck that also draw cards that do something else that just don't fit into that slot. Normally, I only ever run about 10 draw spells. Is 15 more your standard, or do you just want a ton of draw because of the sneak attack?
It's more that second one. So,
Okay.
I have recently started pushing ramp pieces to draw pieces in like general deck building
Okay.
ideas because I'm not so much interested in doing it fast as much as I am being able to keep doing it. Um, so I do have like a lot of your traditional red draw spells that like discard a card, draw some cards. I've got a couple in here that are also more or less also like Ilharg kind of things, like a Sandstone Oracle. There's also like a Dragon Mage in there. I guess Dragon Mage is in the beef category already, so that they can kind of draw you extra cards. Ox of Agonis is a card I like a lot. Have you ever played Emberwild Captain?
I haven't,
Yes.
no.
Oh, Bruce, you're missing out. It's beautiful. So you become the Monarch. So it's 4 mana for a 4/2. You become the Monarch. And then if someone attacks you, they take damage equal to the number of cards in your hand. So like you said, I have 15 draw spells in this deck. So I
Right.
draw a substantial amount of cards. And go ahead. Like I know you're gonna come back and hit me, and that's fine. You're just gonna take damage as well. And that's okay.
Right.
Yeah, and getting this out on turn 4 is some serious threat. I and I mean you're drawing at the end of turn.
Yeah.
Um,
It also helps that I am a big Critical Role fan, and this reminds me of a moment in Critical Role that I don't know if Tyler was aiming for, but that's what I see. So it's just makes me happy. A lot of cards in this deck make me happy. Like Lelia in this deck probably does not belong because I don't really want to impulse draw like a Garden Hellkite. But she's in the deck because she's a lot of fun.
she is a lot of fun. I cannot speak highly enough of Lelia.
If you don't know Lelia's interaction with Cascade, audience, go look that up and you'll smile later.
It's nuts. I can never remember if it works the way I want it to, and then I just have to tell myself it does. It does. It does the thing.
Do you know how it works, Bruce?
No.
You get one for every card you exile on your way through the cascade. So if you cascade through 10 cards to find your thing, Lelia gets 10 counters.
It's
beautiful. It's wonderful.
It's the minutia of 10 separate single card exiles versus exiling 10 cards, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, so I really love Emberwild Captain. I love becoming the Monarch, and again, like, I'm going to turn sideways and I'm rarely going to have defense, so I'm okay with you taking the Monarch, but I'll also make it very clear I'm taking the Monarch back. So I hope you're prepared for Ilharg to come at you if you are the king, because I want my crown.
Ah, man, I love the Monarch as a mechanic, and I love like using that as like general card draw, because I mean that's what it's for, but it also like really speeds up and incentivizes attack, and I love that like with Commander Legends, the first one, they really upped the number of Monarch cards. And I remember playing, I think we were in a pod together. It was you, me, McGreeny, and somebody else. And I built my whole deck around Monarch, not realizing that if I'm the Monarch, whether or not it's the right call, I will be attacked.
I want that crown. I Bruce, you know that, but like you played against Ilharg at Philly, and I was very clear, like, look, I will take a ton of damage on the crackback from the next person. I don't care. I want my card.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's why I was sitting in the wrong place. See, the goal is to not be sitting immediately to Kyle's right, so that way it's not my turn. I get the crown, I get to draw the card, and then I have to face Ilharg charging at me. I would rather face somebody else coming at me with their 1/1, and I'll happily let that through, take 1 point of damage, and hand over the Monarch to someone else. Preferably somebody else, so that way that they can deal with the Ilharg damage. Not so lucky that game, I don't believe.
No. That game was hilarious, though.
It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. So Kyle, with Chandra Flamecaller,
Yep.
Are you only ever using the 0?
So I didn't really know how to categorize Chandra because really all 3 modes are fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm probably not going to +1 her very often. Like I very
Right.
rarely need 2 3/1s. Maybe I have something that like adds extra damage or something like that, so they're bigger than they look. Maybe I need something extra to get that Monarch token back.
Right.
But again, I'm probably not. The 0 is really what she's there for. To again, I don't care what's in my hand. If it's not what I need, just pitch it, get rid of it, move on, get some new cards. And the fact that she can sometimes wrath away small things to let Ilharg through, so I can't get blocked by like 12 goblins,
Right.
is a big deal.
Yeah. No, I saw it in there and I was like, oh, that is an excellent call, just because, especially for what you're saying, because I mean, if you've got 4 cards in hand and none of them are creatures, well,
Yeah.
what is the downside to dumping them and drawing 5 and maybe picking up a couple of creatures on the swap? So no, I love that. I think that's a great option. So
I mean, maybe it should be like a Valakut Exploration, but that card's like $8, and I don't like spending more than like $1 on a card these days. So, Chandra.
right.
Go ahead.
No, I was looking at the lands, mostly because I mean, I rarely ever worry about the land package, because that's pretty much, something that each person just picks out whatever they happen to have.
Correct.
But 38 lands and no Temple of the False God. Kyle.
I know. I know. So 38 lands, again, works for me because I draw so many cards.
Right.
It could be a little bit higher. Like I could go up to 39 or 40. I haven't had an issue of missing land drops in this deck yet, again, because I draw so many cards. I do want to get a temple in here, but you guys are going to find this hard to believe. I don't own one anymore. So, like, last year, because of some personal reasons, I sold, like, 95% of my collection.
Right.
And in that were all my temples. So, I keep meaning to get one, and then I order cards, and I'm like, I forgot to order Temple of False God again.
I may have one or two.
Or 50.
I happen to pick up 50 of them for my 50th. So I may have one or two to spare. I could probably loan one to you.
I appreciate it.
I understand what you're saying, though, because I mean, even if you're not at 40, the ramp package, you've got 12 pieces of ramp, and a lot of them are easily repeatable. And even in the draw package, there was a ton of the draws included treasure. So I'm hardly surprised that you're not having any issues as far as land.
Yeah. I mean, I don't miss land drops in my decks.
Yeah.
Like the people that run like 33 lands, I don't get it. My games don't go that short that like I need to hit a land drop every turn for the next hour and a half or 45 minutes, depending on which way this game. And I don't know which one it's going to be, and I'm hitting a land drop every single turn.
Yeah, and I mean, with it being a deck where you're cheating stuff out, like you don't necessarily need to hit the 9 mana for Blast Furnace Hellkite.
Oh no, but I'm going
on
to
turn 9. But yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I subscribe to the Carlos school of thought. Hopefully you guys have Carlos on at some point. Missing land drops is awful. Don't do it. Play more lands.
I make sure of it. Ever since actually we've started this podcast, I don't think I've built a deck with less than 40. And I think even if I have, it was, I think 38.
I beat that 40 land card drum pretty hard. I just don't. There is just no way. Like you said, Kyle, unless your games are going very short.
Yeah.
There is just no reason. I mean, and honestly, even if they're going short, if you're not running 40 lands, then you're just running less lands just means you're going to see less land. That's all it is. And the longer your game goes, the more you want to make sure you're going to hit every land drop, especially when you're running decks that aren't doing a lot of or that aren't relying on searching out a land.
Well, there's also like the thought of like a lot of people have seen mana curves go down over the years.
Yeah.
My mana curve in this deck is 4.3, and again, it works. And like I used to play a Bosch deck for a couple years, and like that deck's mana was bananas. You could draw an opening hand, and you had over 40 mana in your hand, or over 40 CMC in your hand. It still works. Just hit your land drops.
Now, to be fair, I mean, it's not the average is a little bit skewed. I mean, we are talking sneak attack. I mean, how often are you casting these cards at full rate? So,
not as often, but sometimes it's plan B.
when you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
When you want it to stick around.
I love. Have you guys ever played Cough of the Hammer?
No,
Yes.
I was just looking at that.
Uh, Bruce can tell you more about it, I guess, but it, it's a really good card. Like people get scared of the emblem. I don't care about the emblem. I just don't.
Yeah. No. Koth, for folks who don't know, Koth starts with 3 loyalty. I'm not going to worry about his mana cost, but the +1 is untap a target mountain. It becomes a 4/4 red elemental creature until the end of the turn. It's still a land. You're not really worried about the 4/4 part. You get to untap a mountain, so one of your mountains is counting double. However, when it's time to go, -2, add 1 red mana, add 1 red to your mana pool for each mountain you control. Well, I mean, Kyle, you've got 27 mountains in this deck. Or
Yes.
sorry, 27 basic mountains. There may be others. It's essentially going to double your mana for that turn.
Yeah,
and that's only -2. You go a long ways with Koth.
Yeah, he is a sleeper planeswalker, I think, for a lot of people. And again, because you can just do that. Coveted Jewel is another ramp card that I'm excited to play because again, like I want to get the game moving. I gotta want to get people turned sideways, and I'm taking my jewel back, just like my crown. So be prepared.
It seems like a very similar design space. For those who don't know, it's 6 mana, a 6 mana mana rock. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. It taps for 3 mana of any color, and whenever one or more creatures an opponent control attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards, gains control of Coveted Jewel, and untaps it. And that's all before damage.
Yep. It's super silly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like you said, with Coveted Jewel and the Monarch out there, inevitably, they both end up on one person.
Yep.
So what ends up happening? The whoever the Monarch is has a massive target because now if you can hit them for damage, you get to draw 4 cards, 3 of them right away on your turn, and you get 3 bonus mana to cast some of those cards. It's really, really hard to not attack the Monarch. You are going to fall behind if you can't get through and do that damage. So
yeah, people get real greedy when they see both out, and they're just, they want to keep going, and they don't mind that the big pig's coming right behind them.
Yeah, and I mean it's just like subtle in big quotes, subtle ways to include the table.
I want everyone to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I really do. I don't expect to win. My win percentage is probably higher than it should be, but I don't expect to win games, and I prefer not to. I think the secret actually with Coveted Jewel is to not attack and to just let the person sit behind it and just have 3 extra mana, because as soon as it starts passing around the table, that's when you have to keep playing hot potato, because then you start falling behind. But if you just alpha strike them down, you draw 3 cards and they're dead.
If they keep it, then all they're getting is 3 mana each turn.
Right.
And I know all they're getting is 3 mana, but it's the card draw.
Yeah.
That's
what makes the card silly.
Right. So honestly, keeping it and being able to hold on to it is less rewarding because you get 3 mana, and that's fine. But boy, if somebody could just take this off my hands, you'll get 3 cards, and then maybe I'll swing back and I get 3 cards. I mean, all it takes is 2 goblin players who are happy to swap it back and forth. I mean, you each take a point of damage and you're drawing 3 extra cards. I mean, that's a gift. So, yeah, I really like Coveted Jewel.
Let's look at removal. We'll look at your beefy category after our break. But there's some choice pieces in here that I wanted to highlight, and I'm sure that you wanted to talk about. Let's start off the bat with Reckless Endeavor. Have you had the delightful experience of casting it?
I have, but not as often as I would like to. So Reckless Endeavor is for 5 and 2 red, and you roll 2 d12s. Again, get your Great Axe damage ready. Roll those d12s. One of those dice you're going to get treasures. One of those dice you're doing damage to the board. I love this Wrath because maybe it's mana positive. Who knows? Maybe it'll do stone nothing, and I'll roll 2 1s, and I'll weep for spending 7 mana to get a treasure and do 1 damage to the board. I don't care. I'm gonna have fun rolling dice.
I love those chances. I love too the dilemma of like if you don't necessarily want to wrath the board and you just want the mana of like if you get 2 8s, for instance, you're mana positive, but you're also doing 8 to the board. Or I mean you get an 8 and a 4 and you get 8 mana and 4 damage to the board, or vice versa. I love the choice there. It's surprisingly versatile, if not chaotic.
Bruce, how do you feel about rolling dice?
Well, it's interesting because in a situation like this, I always look at it and say, okay, so the average roll is 6.5 on a 12-sided die. So on average, I'm going to do 6.5 damage to each creature on the board, and I'm going to have 6.5 treasure. Now, if I've already spent 7 to get the spell, it means on average, this spell costs a half a mana. So for half a mana, I'm going to get to do 6.5 damage to every creature on the board. Yeah, you know what? Give me those dice. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, you get all your mana back and you're ready to go again to just, like, again, sneak attack stuff in play or even activate Purpose a couple times.
Right. And I feel the same way you do because, you know what? There are going to be times when you are going to roll double one. It's going to happen. And you know what? When it happens, everybody at the table is going to laugh.
Me too.
Of course. And then there's going to be that time when you roll the double 12 and everybody's going to be like, no. And you're just going to be killing yourself laughing because not only did you get to wipe the board for free, you got bonus mana for it. I'm like, yeah.
It's hard to be mad at it, you know? It's
and you get to roll a d12. How often do you get to roll a d12?
Right.
Unless you're playing a barbarian with a great axe, you just don't.
As current druid, I don't get to roll a d12. I love to this goes with all treasure makers, just the concept of banking it until another turn. You know, you're paying 7 mana. On average, you're getting most of it back for another turn if you don't spend it that turn. And that's kind of the same with Leyline Tyrant, but it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we got some of your usual suspects. We got a Meteor Golem. We got a Chaos War. I got a Chandra's Ignition because my stuff's bigger, and hopefully I just get to kill everything else.
Yeah, and everyone else.
I play Lightning Bolt because I think Lightning Bolt's good in Commander. I thought it was good in Commander before everything got cheap, and now that everything is cheap, I'll pay 1 mana to kill off your utility card or your cheap 2 mana commander or something like that.
Okay.
I've even seen it kill a player. It was BrewCon a couple years ago. I don't remember who it was playing what's Aetherflux Reservoir, and they activated it. And they went down to 2, and then in response, Brad came in with the lightning bolt and was like, "I bolt you," and it cleared the stack. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
it's the most amazing. It's those clutch lightning bolts. You know, sometimes they
a lot of fun.
change the game.
So Kyle, I had a question about Obsidian Charmaw. I mean, I understand, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. Does it often come in cheap, like with the effect, the 1 less, or are you sneak attacking this into?
It comes in cheaper regularly enough that I'm able to bring it in as like sneak attack B or C. So like I can sneak attack or Ilharg in, like I'll have a cards in hand to like Ilharg or sneak attack something in, and I'll still have the Charmaw, and it's cheap enough because of the cost reduction that I can bring it in as well. I'm really not into it for just like bombing someone's non-basic lands out to like color screw them, but I really am for getting rid of like that temple, the flying blue-green temple getting rid of someone that owns a Gaia's Cradle, getting rid of a
Sure.
Coffers, or just some silly land that's getting way
Yeah.
too much value. And they print
Right.
a lot of silly lands these days.
They do. They do. Yeah, because I noticed um, I was running a deck that required me to use generic mana as part of the activation cost for a couple of cards,
Yep.
and realized that I really had to rehash my mana base because I just didn't have a lot of cards that were doing that.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure how often you ran into that in other people's
Yeah,
decks, just because I mean, you know.
I've had pretty opposite experience to you.
Okay.
So unless someone's playing like a 5-color commander or something like that, or maybe
Right.
like a very greedy 4-color commander that's very pip intensive, people have lands that tap for colorless.
Right.
They like because they just got those extra utility lands um that Charmaw can come in.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean if worst case scenario is they're playing with all basic lands or all lands that just produce basic colored mana and I have to pay 5 for it, I'm okay with that. Like
Yeah.
if that's my downside, I'll take it.
Right. No, it makes sense.
If there's one thing I know about Kyle, it's he likes his dragons. So
So, um I used to have a Tiamat deck.
Oh.
And for part of Tiamat, I commissioned Aaron Miller to do a Ganax Astral Hunter, and it came and I played with the deck a couple of times, but that was right before I took everything apart and started from scratch. And I wanted to keep using it because it's so pretty of the artist proof with the sketch on the back
Right.
that I was just like, all right, Ilharg's going to be dragons. So you'll actually notice there's a lot of dragons in this deck because one, dragons are awesome, and two, I like my dragons.
yeah, I mean, there was a part of me that focused on Carnelian Orb of Dragonkind, and then I was like, wait, there are actually a lot of dragons in this deck.
There sure are.
But I think it's about time we take a break.
Okay.
And when we get back, we'll talk about the beefy beef of this beefy deck. So we'll be right back.
Come to this
Perfect.
place and have beef. Beef sandwiches are great. Maybe you like corned beef. I don't know what kind of beef you like, but here at Beef Emporium, we have beef.
Hey, I want some beef. Can you give me some beef?
Just all I'm thinking of is where's the beef?
All right, we're back. We're back, baby. That was a wonderful break. Got some water in me. Got some water out of me.
Good for you. I talked to
Thank you.
Bruce.
And Bruce had a lot of beef.
Yes. Yeah, I had a beefy weekend.
Not as much beef as I have in this deck, though.
No, not even
right.
close.
That's why we were talking about beef. The main beef of this deck is in a nice category titled beef. We got some beautiful 11 cards, mostly dragons. Excellent stuff.
So first, I'll point out that like I am aware that Drakuseth Maw of Flame does not work with Ilharg, but it does work with the rest of them. And I've got an altar that makes it look like Charizard, so it's worth it to me, and I don't care. I do again love dragons. I was fortunate enough to trade for a Terror of the Peaks. If you don't know what Terror of the Peaks does, it's more or less a Warstorm Surge, and it's a dragon.
And it's hard to target, that's for sure.
Similar to the Emberwild Captain, you can go ahead and hit it, but you're gonna pay for it.
I've done some silly things on Arena with Delina and Terror of the Peaks. It's an excellent card. I keep looking at Bogarden Hellkite, because with Ilharg it just comes out and does the thing every turn.
Yeah, Bogarden is it's an 8-mana dragon. It's a 5/5. It's got flash because reasons, and you get to divide up 5 damage when it ETBs. So maybe you're doing 5 damage to something. Maybe Torbrand's out and you're doing 7 damage to something. Maybe Torbrand's out and you're doing 15 damage broken up 5 ways to 5 or to different things. It does silly things. And it's a dragon. And again, if like I don't know, a lot of my play, I call it B-list fatties, because like they're not bad cards per se, but they're definitely not gonna like break a format by any means.
Right.
Something that we talked about before recording. Well, we talked about last week was Thundermare. Please enlighten us. This card doesn't seem like it's got a better home than this one.
It is wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful. So it's a 6 mana. It's a 5/5. It's got haste. It's got sweet art. I've got my version from back in Weatherlight. It's unaffected by summoning sickness, also known as haste. But when it ETBs, tap all other creatures. So normally that's a drawback because you're like, oh, man, I'm paying 6 mana and I'm tapping everything down and now I've just got a 5/5. But if Ilharg turns sideways and like your whole board turns sideways and you Ilharg in a Thundermare, now everybody's blockers are tapped and they just die. And then if they don't die, Thundermare comes back to your hand and you get to do it again next turn.
And there's a real good chance Thundermare's not going to die. I mean, it's not getting blocked.
Nope.
No.
You gotta have instant speed removal
Yeah.
after I tap all your stuff down. And even if you kill Thundermare, you're still taking all the rest of my fatties. You might again just be dead.
It's fascinating. Yeah. I also love the wording of is unaffected by summoning sickness. Not that it doesn't have it, it just doesn't care about it.
Doesn't matter.
And
it's like a horseman out of like lava. I don't know why it's called Thundermare despite it being made out of lava, but hey, I'm here for it. It looks great.
Hey, I never thought of that. That's
Have you guys ever played with Crater Hellion?
Oh yes.
Okay. Have you ever? Andy?
Yes.
I have not. I've
Bruce,
played with the other Hellions.
Or do you want me to talk about it?
I'll read it out. It's a 6/6 for 4 red Hellion Beast. It has Echo for 4 red at the beginning of your upkeep. If this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost. So you're just paying that cost again. When Crater Hellion enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each other creature.
Yep.
Again,
if you Ilharg it out or you sneak attack it out, you kill pretty much everything else, and then you turn sideways, and on both Ilharg and sneak attack, you have no intention of paying the Echo because it's not going to be there.
Yeah. I love too that it's it kills most things, and the things it doesn't are severely injured. So it makes blocking hellish.
I will bring up that like Crater Hellion is a new add to the deck. It's a card I used to really like playing. It's a card, again, it was first print, or one of its printings is from Urza Saga. I think it was its first printing. So it was a card I used to sneak attack in back in the day. And this is going to sound crazy, but this card might be too powerful for the kind of game states I like to create for this deck. Because if I do Ilharg it in, I make anything that's less than like an X4 or less totally pointless in playing because it just dies on every one of my turns. And in how I like to play Magic, I never want to take the game away from you. And it's weird saying a 6 mana 6/6 with Echo might be too powerful, but it might be in this deck.
Yeah, I mean, when you take away the cost, you're looking at the effect, and it's a big one.
Like oddly enough, like I have a Balefire Dragon as well. And like when that hits a player, it does damage to their whole board based on how much damage Balefire Dragon does. And Balefire Dragon is not a cheap magic card by any means. Whereas Ember or Crater Hellion is like barely over a quarter, if that. And Balefire Dragon is I am less concerned about in this deck than I am Crater Hellion. Because like Crater Hellion hits everybody, whereas Balefire I have to pick one player, I have to connect, and it doesn't have trample.
Right.
And again, it's weird saying that Crater Hellion might be more powerful than Balefire Dragon, but that is a sentence I just said.
Yeah, I mean it's completely context based. It makes sense. It's interesting too because I mean you look at it in comparison to Red Dragon, which is a 4/4 with flying rather than a 6/6, and Red Dragon deals damage to each opponent, which is much more palatable.
I'm just here to kill you all dead.
Yeah, exactly. Kill me rather than take my ability to do anything.
Well, if we're all dead, we shuffle up and we play again. Exactly. But if I make it so your deck doesn't do anything, then you're stuck sitting there watching me kill you. And again, that's less fun. I'm here for serious fun.
It's less fun, but I mean, to be honest, you're going to do it quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's still in the deck, right. Both from nostalgia and like I expect like if I were to get into a point where it's Crater Hellion loops, it's going to be 2 before everybody's just dead. Right. And that's probably fine.
Well, I mean, honestly, if Crater Hellion is wiping the board and you're swinging with everything else, you're probably killing an opponent every attack phase.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't take too many rounds. I mean, at that point, I think you come dangerously close to the scoop phase or the phase where everyone draws 2 cards to see if there's anything they could have done.
I prefer to call that the sandwich bracket, where you figure out who's going to go get a sandwich.
Yeah.
Sandwiches.
And like I do run Blast Furnace Hellkite in here, which again is another way to just like it comes down, everything's got double strike. The game's probably over. Like because now Ilharg is a 12 power, the dragon itself is a 5/5, so it's a 10/5. A lot of my things are between 5 and 6 power, so you're probably dead.
Yeah. We just played. I just had a game of Commander this last Thursday, and someone played Blast Furnace Hellkite, and the only thing better than a Blast Furnace Hellkite is somebody else having a copy of Blast Furnace Hellkite, because then everybody gets double strike, and it doesn't matter where you swing.
Yep.
And that game had 3 copies of Blast Furnace Hellkite along with the original, and the game didn't last long. Turns out double strike on all your dudes, that moves things along quick. So I am a big fan of Blast Furnace Hellkite. So Kyle, the one I wanted to ask you about, it's under I own one.
Yep.
Brash Taunter. Now, this is truly one of my favorite red cards, but so many of your cards say that the damage, like, you get to pick where the damage goes. So I'm not really sure, like, is Brash Taunter there more for defense, or is there another card that I'm just not seeing?
It's more for defense.
Okay.
If you haven't looked up the LRR video of like it being previewed, go do that. Have a good chuckle. Come back. You punch like a kobold. And like it's just fun. Like, okay, you're gonna hit me, you're gonna blasphemous act. Cool, great. Take 13.
Yeah.
And if I get to untap, I get to start fighting stuff. Maybe I fight one of my own things because Brash Taunter is a lot smaller than everything else I have in the deck. So I get to push damage around that way. And if Torbran's out, then the damage gets escalated. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a fun card. That's really all I'm here for.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who runs it in a deck with Big Furry Monster, I am a big fan of Brash Taunter, but I wasn't sure how it was gonna, how it panned out for your deck. So No, that's wild. I honestly think Brash Taunter belongs in any deck that can have that has red in it. I just think it's that good a card.
I I don't know. I am of the mindset that even Soul Ring isn't an auto include.
Right?
Like Command Tower is more of an auto include to me than Soul Ring is in Magic decks.
Yeah,
Um, I like Brash Taunter a lot, but it's really in here because this is a big red deck. I have one and it's fun.
yeah,
No one ever sees the sneak attack on defense coming. So
right.
you leave 1 mana up, they try to attack you to get the Monarch back or get the coveted jewel, and you sneak attack into Brash Taunter, and now they just took all the damage, and you're
Yeah.
still the Monarch.
Oh, jeez.
That is something we hadn't even talked about, because sneak attack on defense is something that is completely underrated,
Yep.
and the first time you play sneak attack against someone else, they are going to get suckered in. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. Nobody sees it as a defensive option. Everybody sees it unaffected by summoning sickness. Oh, okay, so I can attack with it, and that's all they read, and no one thinks about the defense aspect, until they get got, and then they're a little more aware of it. But even then, they still walk into it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it took me a long time playing the sneak attack deck, even as a kid, to realize like, wait, I can do this on defense, and like you can also do like the weird because sneak attack does it at like the end step, so you
yeah,
can do it end of turn. You can sneak attack in a couple cards at like the person to your right's end step, and then do it all again on your turn to just get a little bit more.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's right, because the cards don't leave until the next end step or the start of the next end step.
I like the use of Key to the City in this. Key to the City, for those who don't know, is a 2-mana artifact. Tap, discard a card. Up to one target creature can't be blocked this turn. Whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you may pay 2 to, if you do, draw a card. Sure, you can do it for a draw, but I do like that because you can just do that whenever. Obviously, you can do it for your opponents, but Ilharg can put out a creature and then you can make it unblockable so that you
Well,
make
sometimes
sure that it doesn't.
sometimes
die.
I just need to get Ilharg through, and like I don't want to have to recast Ilharg or put a third from the top. So okay, Ilharg's unblockable. I'm like, sure, it's got trample, but now it's sneaky trample. I don't know.
Yeah. And especially with Torbran out, like commander damage becomes a possibility with this
Yeah.
deck.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So have you guys ever played Fnatic Amogus? I'm gonna go back to the beef section for a little bit.
Yeah,
I've
haven't.
played it in just my Heartless Hidetsugu deck, which
Okay.
was my very first deck, so I probably was playing it fairly incorrectly.
Eh. So everyone gives Gary a hard time because it gains all that life and it's 5 mana. If you don't know what Gary is, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, go look it up. Not in this deck. Fnatic Amogus for 4 mana does damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. So you go through your deck, and again, this is unlike Thundermare, which is your first sneak attack target or your first sneak attack creature. Fnatic's your last, so you get everything else in play, and then drop in the Fnatic, hit everybody, and again, maybe they're dead, maybe they're not. Find out.
They're closer.
Yes, they're significantly closer.
Realistically, worst case scenario with the Fnatic Amogus is it's going to do 4.
Yep.
Because it'll see itself, the sneak attack, and Ilharg.
Yep.
So you're already looking at 4 there, and that doesn't include any of the other cards you've played ahead of it. So, and just about everything in here has got at least 2 red. So.
Yeah, it's not. I'm probably not getting the most value in this deck out of it, but it's like it could be a. There's a dragon from Theros, spawn of something. Might be Thraxus, where you get to dome somebody equal to the number of mountains you have. I've thought about putting that one in instead. Currently, I've got this one because I like doming everybody, and I have this one, and I don't have the other one. But I don't know. Maybe we'll change it later.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of playing cards you own rather than cards you have to buy that are a little bit better. So one other card I want to talk about, and it might be the last one that I spend some time on, is Bolt Bend. It's more or less a counterspell in red, and that just makes me smile. So again, I'm playing a lot of big dumb things. You're gonna want to kill my big dumb things. You're gonna target me with spot removal, and I get to send it at one of your things instead. So now you have spent a card, lost a blocker, and I get to hit you. Sounds like a W.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
I love this card, especially where you're wont to play creatures with power 4 or greater. So it's going to be generally 1 red mana.
I think there are like 3 cards in the deck that are creatures that don't meet that that requirement. And it's like Solemn, Torbrand, and one of the dragons I talked about earlier. But like everything else, like if it's in play, both Ben's online. Oh, I guess Feldon. Delina. Okay, so I guess I got a couple more than I thought. Whatever.
There's a handful, but it's not like, like what are the chances? Like if you've got Ilharg out, then
it's online. Yeah. Counter spells in not blue, absolutely hilarious.
I've got one right here tucked in, covering up my brother's face.
Little pyroblast.
Old pyroblast.
Kyle, I wanted to ask, you had one card in your sideboard, Molten Primordial.
Yeah. So I recently took Molten out for Crater Hellion, actually. And I kind of took it out for that same reason I protected Drakuseth, because off Ilharg, Molten Primordial doesn't do anything. Like, it just takes a blocker away. It works really well off like Sneak Attack, Feldon, and like the rest of them. But it doesn't work off Delina, and it doesn't work off Ilharg except to steal blockers, because I don't have any free sack outlets in my deck. So it's not like I'm gonna permanently get rid of anything. And if I'm gonna play one,
right,
like if I only get one, I would rather that one be Drakuseth.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. I hadn't really. I wasn't thinking about how the cards you're borrowing, you're just going to return back.
Yeah.
As opposed to, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. If you play something like a Goblin Bombardment in the deck, or
if you
good old fashioned, what was Chuck? What was the Cyclops that threw things for 6 mana?
Oh yeah.
His nickname's Chuck, and he's from the Urza's block. Anyway, go look it up. It's another red card. It was in my casual sneak attack deck back as a kid, right. And you would sneak attack something in, kill one person, hey, kitty cat, and then turn and throw it at somebody else.
Yeah.
I have not heard of this, but I am intrigued.
Oh yeah.
My kitty cat was making a lot of noise, so I had to go make sure that he was not roughing up the blinds too much. Also in your sideboard, you have Professional Facebreaker, which is one of my favorite cards out of the past couple of years.
The sideboard cards are the ones I actually took out for
Gotcha.
Hellion, Delina, and Perforos. So Facebreaker came out. It's not a great Ilharg target. I'm probably going to get like a treasure every turn, and I wasn't really sure if that was worth it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's also nice because it also has the impulse draw. But I mean, I've found that even in decks that like I have one in my my Galazeth Prismari deck where I can tap the treasure for mana and then sack it to Professional Facebreaker. It's tough to let it go just for the draw, but
it was in here, and it was in here in like the I own one category, and I don't know, I just rather play Delina or Perforos instead.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And like Urabrask was in here, more to mess with people than it was to do anything else. It's just like, oh, you're gonna play the control deck? Well, I guess you're gonna impulse draw instead. Good luck.
I feel like that's just another one of those like I have it cards,
Yeah.
And I love those choices and decks when it's just like it doesn't it's not optimal for this deck, but I got one,
I mean,
and I want to play it.
I have one, and it's fine. Like it's an outpost siege. It's a Phyrexian arena in red that turns sideways. Like, okay, if that's my floor, that's a floor I'm willing to handle.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anything else in this deck that's like sticking out to you that you're just like dying?
Not particularly. I do like Ruin Grinder a lot. It's in the draw section. It's a 7/4 with Menace, and when it dies, each player may Wheel of Fortune.
Ooh.
And I am a big fan of. It's also got Mountain Cycling, which is great because I want to hit my land drops, and sometimes you want to like cycle it out and then felt it in play. I am a much bigger fan of optional wheels than I am forced wheels. And I don't know. I think this really hits a sweet spot because, like, I turn sideways. I'm probably going to either kill 2 things and wheel, or maybe I just hit you for 7 and then wheel at the end of turn. Sure, you got your hand before mine, but fine. I don't care. Maybe you'll beat me. Still don't care.
I must have one of those cards because that's from C21, but I don't think I've ever seen this card before.
If you don't own one, it's barely over a quarter. Okay.
That's true.
Yeah. Ruin Grinder's another one where, I mean, sneak attack on defense kind of gets what you want.
Yep.
4 toughness is good, but usually it's good enough to get it dead.
Right.
He does the block, dies, and then, then you've got a new mitt of 7 cards, and there's a good chance that the person swinging at you will not also opt for 7 more cards. So
yeah, I mean, again, if they do, cool, good for them. Like, it helps the game progress and that everyone gets to play. And if your hand's really good and it's already going to do the thing, I'm not making you discard your whole the thing.
Right.
And we get to keep playing.
Yep. I like too that with Feldon, Perforos, and Sneak Attack specifically, you're sacrificing it. So it's going to do the die trigger rather than like with Delina, it's exile at the end of combat,
right?
Which is always good when you need that dies trigger. So
yeah, and I mean it's more or less a second Dragon Mage, and like Dragon Mage is already fun.
Yeah.
I did think about playing Null Spine Dragon in this deck. Unfortunately, Null Spine it wheels on ETB based on how much damage people have taken. So like Null Spine doesn't work, unfortunately, the way I want it to.
Yeah, if you're being forced to use sneak attack on after combat, that's not nearly as much fun. Actually, I was going to suggest Neheb the Eternal in the deck, and then realized it's just going to give you a lot of red mana at a time in your turn when you really don't, you don't really care to have it. I mean, sure,
well, I appreciate you bringing up Neheb, and I appreciate you giving me a very sound logic as to why I shouldn't play him.
Oh yeah,
but that is the exact reason Neheb's not in the deck.
What was that?
Neheb is $26.
Yeah, Neheb's not cheap.
And like I said, I don't like spending more than $1 on a card these days, and I don't own a Neheb anymore. So
yeah. One that I thought of, and you might have had this in a previous version of the deck, but Jaxus the Troublemaker.
Yeah, so Jaxus was in the maybe board for a while as, again, another way to cheat things in play. The reason I ended up not going with Jaxus is because Jaxus requires something to already be in play to do the thing.
Gotcha.
That makes a lot of sense. I have to have Sneak Attack and Jaxus, and then I win a lot. But if I only have Jaxus, then I have to hard cast it and Jaxus, and I don't win as much. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense, especially where like Jaxus. So Jaxus, for those who don't know, stats don't matter. The text box says red, tap, discard a card, create a token of a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste when the creature dies. draw a card, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery, which is probably the hardest part of that activation, because you can't do it mid-combat.
Yeah, it was a card I really thought about, and thankfully my friend Mason, who you guys should meet sometime, talked to me a lot about it and was like, no, I don't think it works. And he kind of explained what I explained to you guys. I was like, yep, tracks, take it out of the deck. It was one of the cuts. I immediately slotted it in because I was like, yeah, Jax, I'll get more. Like, well,
it's a tough card. It makes a lot of sense. You're right, and Mason's right. It's one of those things where you have we've been learning in my improv class, thinking A to C, not A to B to C, just making that connection of like, you got to think for the next step, the further down the line, rather than just like the oh, it seems to fit type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it would more or less put Ilharg in the same issue that like Kron used to have for Bruce, where like you need to have the creature and the enchantment and to swing, and like you're just putting too many ands.
Too
and
many,
like sure the payoff
conditions.
is I win, but
it's yeah, and it's definitely not like even remotely about like optimizing. It's just about getting a thing done, you know.
Yeah.
It's a tough line that I've tried to trace in the past 100 episodes here, that I've been like, there's a difference between optimizing and making a thing happen consistently, and it's just such a hard thing to define. And I think that, I mean, this realization with Jax's is definitely probably kind of that idea. But
maybe, I mean, I like Jax a lot. I just I have a copy in my little cabinet next to me, and again, I want her in the deck because she's good, she's fun, she does again what you think the deck would want to do, but
yeah,
the timings just don't line up.
Right. And I guess that's what I mean, is like, you know, it has a place somewhere. I'm not saying that it's, you know, a fully optimized card even, but it fits somewhere and makes a deck do its thing somewhere.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I think it would work much better in like a Feldon deck.
Yeah.
Because of when you're doing the thing and then you're discarding for Feldon, but
for sure. Bruce, you got anything?
I do not.
Rascal. I think that's a pretty good place to start to wrap things up.
okay.
I wanna thank both of you, Bruce, Kyle, for joining me, and Bruce and Kyle.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you all for
not
joining
anytime.
us.
Anytime with notice.
Oh, of course. I've had a blast over the past 100+ weeks because we've, you know, had breaks and stuff, and I can't believe that we've made it here. And
I'm so happy for you guys. Like,
thanks.
People don't realize how much fun this podcast is, and I hope they listen to it. I don't know if I'm going to draw a crowd for you, but hey, maybe.
Hey, you know, if you do, great. If you don't, great. We got to sit here and talk with you for a couple hours, and
Yeah.
got to talk about red, the best color.
I will go out and say it. I think red has the most diversity in, like, mono red has the most diversity in EDH decks. We could talk about that another time, or you could find me on Twitter and we'll talk about it.
I like that. I'm writing that down. And I mean, honestly, like, I feel like I've just learned so much about the game and what I want out of even life, just by sitting here and talking to Bruce. This podcast started as me spending way too much time after games were done being in Bruce's house, and then it was midnight and I'm like, I gotta go home, I got work in the morning, and Bruce's like, yeah, me too. That we were like, you know what, let's dedicate some time to just chatting about philosophy of game and figuring out what we love about this game that so many people love. It's amazing. Yeah. So before we sign off, I'm gonna give you some time to plug your place, to talk about you for as long as you want, if you want to.
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter, Kyle C. Carson. It's my name. You can go see my friends, One More Mana. I help out with those guys a lot. Those guys are great. They're hilarious. But if you don't have to follow me, you don't have to follow them. Just go be a good person. Put some good in the world. Help out at an animal shelter. Foster some kids. Foster some pets. Help your neighbor across the street. Get something from the top shelf for someone who can't reach it. Just put some good in the world. It's so much. It's so easy to sow chaos. It's so easy to sow negativity. But if we all just make a little ripple.
It's beautiful. That's some classic Kyle right there. That just go be good. Go do a good thing. It's not asking much.
If you're going to a Magic Con, do not wear a white hat. That's Kyle's. That's not yours.
I thought you were telling Kyle to not wear a white hat.
No. There was a dude at GP Philly who wore a white cowboy hat, and it wasn't Kyle, and he psyched out everybody that knows Kyle at least once. I saw the guy sitting there at one of the tables, and I started walking up to him, and I was going to sit down and just start chatting, and then realized that's not Kyle. So I'm like, yeah. I made the walk and just cruised right past him. Like, I mean, almost shoulder to shoulder, I went past this guy before I recognized that's not Kyle. Yeah, I just assumed that it was. So if you're going to a Magic Con, Kyle wears the white cowboy hat, not you.
If you see me at an event, I try to take in about one a year. I take in a couple extra if they come down to Florida, where I live. And you see me, come have fun. Like, I just join the crowd. We'll have a great time.
Yeah,
we will have a great time.
You should have asked that man if he knew Kyle. Because maybe he was like, yeah, I was inspired by him, bro. Just this is where the fun is. In the hat.
The first year I didn't attend Gen Con, there was another gentleman in a big white hat that, like, and all everyone's like, Kyle, are you here? I was like, no, I'm at home. And they're like, well, who's this? I was like, I don't know. Some imposter.
It's part of the club.
I don't know. He doesn't have my authorization.
I'm going to show up in a little tiny black cap at the next. I'll be the anti-Kyle.
I think I have my black hat over here. Is it right up here?
I wouldn't even know what to do.
Hats don't fit my head.
If this fits my head, it fits yours.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My head is not small.
Anyway, as we trail off, I'd like to thank you, listener, watcher, purveyor of all beautiful things magic. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening for 100 episodes or less if this is not your 100th
first episode.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for finding us. If you want to listen back, great. If not, we're going to have more episodes coming up. We're going to take a 2-week break where we have little tiny short episodes. They'll be like 15, 20 minutes instead of this one, which I think is going to be maybe 100 minutes. Who's to say?
Ooh.
It's not. But I want, it's on behalf of Bruce, and I'm sure he can say thank you too. Thank you. On behalf of me, thank you. And thank you, Kyle, for being our wonderful guest for this episode. We're Temple of the False Pod. We're decks that are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy. Thank you.
I'm Bruce. Thank you.
I'm Kyle. Thank you.
Yeah. Go play some Magic for me. Have a great night, and may your 5th land be the temple.
Bye.
Wait. Before you go, I just wanted to say thank you for listening. You can reach out to us via email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com or on Twitter at falsepodmtg. Bruce is at ManaBurned, and I'm at Andy Weekend, though you'll definitely notice I use the podcast Twitter far more often. Now that we've got you here, make sure you subscribe, like, rate us on whatever podcast platform you use. It helps us out. It gets us more reach. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Like a video there. Leave some comments for more casual enjoyment. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with some more timeless discussions about all things casual. So come hang out, and may your 5th land be the temple. Bye-bye. Should I do my best, Bruce? Bye!